Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees, here are today's top stories. The Prime Minister carries out his long-awaited cabinet reshuffle, with Dominic Raab demoted and Gavin Williamson getting the sack. The Chinese ambassador is banned from Parliament. This comes after Beijing imposed sanctions on British lawmakers for highlighting human rights abuses in Xinjiang. And it's deadline day for French health and care workers. They need to have a COVID jab if they want to keep their jobs. We hear how the industry is being affected. Prime Minister carries out a long-awaited shake-up of his top team. He says he plans for a strong and united cabinet following the turbulence of the pandemic. Liz Truss replaces Dominic Raab as Foreign Secretary. The PM demotes Raab, who has been widely criticised for his handling of the Afghanistan crisis, moving him to the Ministry of Justice, but also handing him the title Deputy Prime Minister. Priti Patel remains at the Home Office, but the PM sacks Gavin Williamson, Robert Jenrick and Robert Buckland. Michael Gove replaces Jenrick at the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Nadeem Sahawi replaces Williamson as Education Secretary, and Nadine Dorries becomes Culture Secretary. Tory party co-chair Amanda Milling was also ousted, replaced by Oliver Dowden. The shake-up comes weeks before the Conservative Party conference. The Chinese ambassador to Britain has been banned from Parliament because Beijing imposed sanctions on lawmakers who highlighted alleged human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Here's NTD's Eddie Aiken with the details.
China's ambassador to the UK has been barred from Parliament. This is after lawmakers sanctioned by the Chinese regime expressed outrage over his scheduled visit. Zheng Zhuguang had been due to speak at the event there on Wednesday, but he was banned after the speakers of both houses intervened. In March, the Chinese regime imposed sanctions on 9 British individuals in retaliation for UK sanctions against Chinese officials responsible for the alleged abuse of Uyghurs. But the all-party Parliamentary China Group still invited Zheng to its summer party on the Commons terrace overlooking the Thames. Among the sanctioned were 5 Tory MPs and 2 members of the House of Lords. Some of them wrote to the speakers in protest against the invitation. They said it would be unthinkable that the Chinese regime's representative in the UK is still apparently free to come to Westminster and to use facilities here as a mouthpiece for his regime. Speaker of the House of Commons Sir Lindsay Hoyle said, "I do not feel it's appropriate for the ambassador for China to meet on the Commons estate, an indoor place of work, when his country has imposed sanctions against some of our members." Former Tory leader Sir Ian Duncan Smith and some of his sanctioned colleagues thanked the speakers for their strong principled stand. They said allowing the diplomat onto the estate would have been an insult to Parliament. But Richard Graham, the Conservative MP who chairs the group on China, expressed his regret that he would have to postpone the talk. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
French health and care workers today face an ultimatum: receive a COVID-19 vaccine or face suspension without pay. President Macron issued the mandate 2 months ago, but tens of thousands of carers have still not received their first shot. NTD France correspondent David Vevez has the story.
Healthcare workers took part in several demonstrations across France on Tuesday. Protesters spoke out against the vaccine mandate. From September 15th, healthcare workers who refuse to be vaccinated will be dismissed. Dozens gathered outside the French Health Ministry in Paris. According to trade union spokesperson Yann Le Baron, the non-vaccinated are now the black sheep in hospitals.
We say yes to the vaccine, yes to the science, but we're totally against this form of blackmail, saying we'll lose our jobs if we don't comply with the government.
He says that the government is trying to lay the blame on non-vaccinated staff.
Nowadays, we are being pushed to believe that unvaccinated people are so dangerous to others that they deserve to lose their jobs.
Some healthcare workers said on social media that they will take days off, hoping for a reversal of the decision.
Non-vaccinated staff have been summoned by administrators at their hospitals. Some receive text messages directly from their bosses, which is illegal. And some employees couldn't bear it, so they took weeks off.
Medical Secretary Vanessa Perotti, who works just outside of Paris at a public hospital, joined the protest outside the French Health Ministry to show her opposition to the vaccine. She said she was ready to be suspended from her hospital job and has already sent her resume to potential employers.
I've sent my CV around. I'll wait for a job offer and I'll show my current employers my contract and I'll say goodbye.
According to the health minister, around 90% of all healthcare workers have received at least one dose of the vaccine. David Vives, NTD News.
Next, NTD's Anna Rodriguez takes a closer look at how France's healthcare vaccine mandate is affecting the industry and the health professionals that work in it.
Wednesday is deadline day. French healthcare workers must be jabbed or face suspension without pay. Emmanuel Malinowski works at an elderly care home in Bordeaux. He will hand in his notice due to his refusal to get vaccinated. He says mandatory vaccination announced in July is an infringement of his freedom and a kick in the teeth for a profession that already feels underappreciated.
Despite everything, I made the effort to do this work, because this is a profession that's really for me. I made the effort despite the conditions, but since the 12th of July, it was the last straw.
After handing in his uniform and saying goodbye to his colleagues, Malinowski plans a holiday. He will live off his saving for a few months, then change a career if the mandate is not rescinded.
Even though it's tough, I felt good caring for people. For the residents, it's been 15 years that I've been used to working in a team. It will disrupt my life, but still, I've made my choice.
Emmanuel Chignon managed a Terra Negra care home through the worst of the pandemic. But now a new crisis. Staff would rather quit than comply with the government mandate to get vaccinated. He says he will be short of staff to care for residents. Several staff did not have their shots in time and were removed from the rota. Chignon says temp agencies he relies on to fill in staffing gaps have the same issue.
If we can't replace the carers who leave, if we cannot replace these departures, the work will fall on the others. And I fear an unvirtuous cycle with exhaustion, weariness, and an increase in absences. This is the risk we could have in the coming weeks.
At the Terra Negra care home, just a few absentees is enough to trigger a crisis. Staffing was already on a knife edge, with many on sick leave, worn out by the stress of caring for residents through the pandemic. Managers struggle to recruit new people into a job that is tough and poorly paid.
The teams are very worried and they're working more hours. They're already replacing people who didn't come in by working 2 hours more. So much is being asked of them, and their worry is how things will go with the lack of staff from the 15th.
Under the mandate, the healthcare and care home workers have to have had their first jab by September the 15th. President Macron's government introduced the rule to boost the vaccination uptake and prevent a new virus flare. Terra Negra's resident doctor hopes that the staff who are forced to leave will change their minds.
I hope that reason prevails over fear in the coming weeks and months, and that these people who did not want to get vaccinated get on the path of vaccinations and come back to us and work with us again.
Anna Rodriguez, NTD News.
The Dutch government announces the easing of COVID-19 restrictions and the introduction of a corona pass showing proof of vaccination to enter public places. NTD's Joy Duguid has the story.
A corona pass will be required for people in the Netherlands aged 13 and over to enter venues such as restaurants, bars and cultural events. Prime Minister Mark Rutte made the announcement on Tuesday. He says most social distancing requirements will be dropped.
I am happy to announce today that as of Saturday, September 25th, we can scrap the 1.5 meter social distance as an obligation everywhere.
The measures that remain will be a mask requirement for public transportation and schools, and there will still be a recommendation to work from home when possible. Rutte explained that scientists on the team managing the Dutch outbreak felt the pass was necessary to avoid high-risk situations.
A corona pass is already in use in many neighbouring countries. It means that in some places you're able to show that you have either been vaccinated or that you have had coronavirus and are immune because of that, or that you have tested negative in the past 24 hours.
The Dutch government's Health Advisory Board says there's no need for a booster jab because vaccinations are still effective. Government data shows more than 70% of the Dutch population have received at least one jab, with 65% fully vaccinated. Joy Dugid, NTD News.
As the government pushes forward with its vaccine rollout for 12 to 15-year-olds, as well as booster jabs for the elderly, some epidemiologists are concerned about the reported adverse reactions from the vaccines. NTD's Dan Worrell has more.
Vaccines continue to be pushed forward as a solution to the pandemic.
Over 50s and the under 50s who are at risk or more at risk were now motoring ahead with the booster programme, a third dose 6 months after your second.
But some doctors and health professionals are raising concerns that vaccines are doing more harm than good. Data from Yellow Card reporting, the UK system for reporting adverse vaccine reactions, show total reported adverse reactions to the vaccine as over 1 million and reported deaths at more than 1,600.
Pandemrix, the flu vaccine that was previously used, that was withdrawn after approximately 50 deaths had occurred, and they withdrew it. Now in the UK we already have over 1,600 deaths reported via the Yellow Card system, and we have to remember that this is obviously a spontaneous reporting system. Lots of people don't even know about the system. Some doctors don't even know about the system. It also takes time to complete the reports, and it's unpaid work. So many adverse events which are occurring won't get reported. So we feel that this 1,600 deaths is the tip of the iceberg.
The UK's drugs regulator, the MHRA, on the other hand, said to NTD in an email, the number of Yellow Card reports is not unusual or concerning, given that 91 million doses of the vaccine have been administered, particularly as we expected some side effects to be quite common. After analysing the evidence, McGilchrist, who's worked in medicine development fields for more than 25 years, is particularly concerned about the booster programme. She says analysis shows deaths caused by the COVID vaccine could be as high as 24,000. Together with Dr. Tess Lowry, she says there needs to be an overhaul of the Yellow Card system. They say crucial data missing from the UK reporting system is a person's age, gender and the time frame when they had the vaccine. This data is available in the US system. At one point, calls to ambulances went up for cardiac arrest and loss of consciousness. This happened at the same time that vaccinated under 30 started and the shelf life of the Pfizer vaccine was extended.
If we had in the MHRA data the gender and the age, we would be able to see, for example, and understand if this was occurring just in the young, for example, both male and female, then it would be suggestive that it was a problem with extending the shelf life of the Pfizer vaccine, of the thawed vials, if it was occurring equally in men and women of that age group. If it was occurring differentially just in young men, then it would be more suggestive of a specific vaccination effect.
McGilchrist says the vaccine rollout should be suspended until an independent, safe investigation is conducted. Public Health England haven't responded in time for deadline. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
The John Lewis Partnership plans to recruit more than 7,000 temporary roles across the country this Christmas. This comes as job vacancies hit a record high, surpassing 1 million. Here's NTD's Neil Woodrow with more on this.
Bosses at John Lewis Partnership, the employee-owned business, are looking to fill 7,000 temporary Christmas positions, 2,000 more than last year.
To help the recruitment drive, they are offering free food and drink to successful applicants. The new employees will be spread across their 34 John Lewis stores and 331 Waitrose shops, filling roles such as store assistants and customer delivery drivers. 550 permanent full-time driver and warehouse roles are also available. The company will launch 10 one-stop Christmas emporiums in shops from October, and a new 300,000 square foot distribution centre in Leicestershire will support online demand.
In general, demand for employees across the UK is high, as figures out yesterday for the 3 months to August show job vacancies surpassed 1 million, the highest since records began in 2001. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
Still to come, a wildfire in southern Spain is finally under control after 6 days, seeing 2,000 people evacuated. That and more after the break. Russian President Vladimir Putin entered self-isolation after people in his inner circle fell ill with COVID-19. The Kremlin said the leader himself tested negative. NTD's Joy Duguid has more on this.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Tuesday he was self-isolating after several members of his entourage fell ill with COVID-19. Putin has had 2 shots of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine. He explained the situation to government officials by video conference.
It's a natural experiment. Let's see how Sputnik V works in practice. I have quite high levels of antibodies. Let's see how that plays out in real life. I hope everything will be as it should be, and Sputnik V will show its high effectiveness against COVID-19.
Putin said one of the people who fell ill was someone he had been in close contact with all of Monday.
One of those employees, a person who works in close contact with me, had been vaccinated. His levels of antibodies went down, and he has got the booster. Judging by everything, that was a little late. 3 days later, I guess, he got sick.
The Kremlin said on Tuesday that Putin himself tested negative for COVID-19 and was absolutely healthy. It added that he took the decision to self-isolate after completing a busy round of meetings on Monday. That included face-to-face talks with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Putin also met Russian Paralympians and travelled to Western Russia on Monday to observe joint military drills with Belarus. The Kremlin has had a rigorous regime in place designed to keep Putin, who turns 69 next month, healthy and away from anyone with COVID-19. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
A wildfire in southern Spain is finally under control after 6 days. 2,000 people were evacuated as it burned through forests. NTD's Eddie Aiken has the story.
A wildfire that burned for 6 days in southern Spain is brought under control on Tuesday. The wildfire devastated nearly 40 square miles of forest near the Costa del Sol since starting last Wednesday. 6 days of fire left scorched trucks and burnt bulldozers. A vet drives through the area looking for hurt animals.
Today is the first day that the fire is under control, and that's why we're here now with food and medication and everything for animals and the wildlife to see if we can find animals hurt, burned, that are near the road, so we can help them.
The wildfire was said to be one of Spain's most difficult to tackle in recent times. About 1,000 firefighters backed by 50 aircraft worked to put out the blaze. One firefighter died while working to extinguish the fire. 2,000 people were evacuated.
Well, it's obviously a real big tragedy for a lot of people, since there's been a lot of people that's been evacuated in the past few days. We also had to sleep in the parking lot right over there next to Bern Arbor, just because we weren't sure if you know, the wildfires would be catching far enough, because like even with slow winds, I mean, fires can be traveling for like 10 kilometers an hour, so it's very unsure for a lot of people.
Fanned by strong winds, the wildfire spread through the mountainous area above Estepona, a popular spot with British tourists and retirees. Environment officials says the blaze appeared to have been started deliberately and investigations are underway. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
With the Taliban's return, a cultural heritage protection expert is worried about artworks and artifacts in Afghanistan. He says war and civil unrest tend to fuel the illegal antiquities trade. NTD's Eddie Aitken has a story.
These precious relics of Afghanistan's ancient past were recovered and returned in April this year. The long-term security, however, is by no means certain. The collection of 33 artifacts was seized from a New York-based art dealer. Authorities say the dealer is one of the world's most prolific smugglers of antiquities. According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, illicit trafficking in a nation's cultural heritage is a lucrative global scourge.
Illicit markets, the biggest markets have traditionally been London and various centres in the United States. That's expanding. There are now markets in the Far East, in China and elsewhere, and also in South America, and to some extent in the Gulf.
The global pandemic has made the problem worse with reduced surveillance, protection and resources. Stone is a former president of the Blue Shield, an international NGO created to advise UNESCO on the protection of cultural heritage in the event of armed conflict. He says the trafficking in most cases connected to other forms of organized crime, and army raids on smugglers have shown just how close the relationship is.
On one side of the room, there are illicit guns. On the other side, there are stashes of money. On the third side, there are drugs. And on the fourth side, there are antiquities. It's the same problem. And antiquities and cultural property in general is just a facet of large-scale criminal activity.
But police forces across the world have limited funds to equip them to fight the trade in illegal antiquities.
There are, countless police and other organizations trying to combat that trade in drugs, in armaments, etc. There are, at the moment, 3 people in the UK police system, in the Metropolitan Police, who deal with the theft and trade in illicit cultural property.
Years of conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan have fueled the illegal trade, allowing militants to raise arms and launder money. As Afghanistan becomes increasingly isolated from the international community, concern is growing not just for its people, but also its heritage.
So we are very worried about the below-ground archaeological sites, because there we have no idea what they will find and what they will excavate and what they will either destroy or most likely put onto the illicit trade in cultural property.
UNESCO is holding a summit with experts from around the art world to work out how to stop the illegal trade in antiquities. Stone says the key is to stop the demand, but that relies on collectors understanding the ethical issues behind the objects and demanding to know the provenance of all items offered to them. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
A new exhibition of the work of Dutch Golden Age master Johannes Vermeer launched last week in Germany. It was opened by German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. Here's NTD's El Rhodes with more on this.
The biggest exhibition of Dutch artist Johannes Vermeer ever held in Germany opened last week. Its star at the Old Masters Picture Gallery is the painting Girl Reading a Letter at an Open Window from 1659. It's one of the world's most famous works from the golden age of Dutch painting. In 2017, experts realized that the empty white wall in the background was not how Vermeer intended. In 4 years of careful restoration, experts from around Europe removed layers of grime and overpainting to reveal a vibrant picture with a whole new meaning: love.
And now it changed totally, as you know, and on the background of the wall there's now a large painting, a picture within a picture, showing this god of love, this Cupid.
The exhibition, titled Johannes Vermeer on Reflection, also shows 8 of his other paintings that are stylistically similar to Girl Reading a Letter at an Open Window, and it features about 50 paintings from his contemporaries. Neithard explains Vermeer learned from his colleagues but then went beyond.
He overcame them in the quality of his painting and also in the manner he was able to look. When Vermeer looked at the surface of a plate or a curtain or a dress of a girl or their hair or their face, he saw much more than all the others, and he was able to depict it.
Vermeer painted many recurring motifs, and contemporaries viewing his paintings would have understood their meaning. For the painting Woman Holding a Balance, a woman attempts to steady and maintain scales.
You see the balance is empty. There's no gold or pearls or some of this in the balance. There's nothing in. So she is weighing kind of only to get the balance, maybe the balance of her life.
In the background is a painting of the Last Judgment. Vermeer has mirrored the concept he was communicating in the foreground, that of balance. Perhaps the balance between faith and the temptations of the world. Visitors can see the exhibition until the 2nd of January next year. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.